I think I should get that. Oh, look at that huge bit of bark. Wow, we should take all that off. And I can just see this tree. Yeah, this is the sort of thing I want. I mean, it was determined by finding this tree. I had initially thought it would be different, what I'd get.
There you go. Wow, that's nice.
Aren't they fabulous drawings? God, look at that. Beat that for an artwork. It's so beautiful, isn't it? This is so fabulous. Actually, I quite like that the trunk's a bit arched up, because it would be amazing if it could lie arched like that, and then we can deal with the other branches. Can you fit that in the freezer? That'd be amazing to have that length. Oh my God, look at these drawings. Wow. Oh, look, so the beetles. Oh, quick, I need a really good image of that beetle. Have you ever had a tree going into a museum before? That's fantastic. It's like my memory note, and I've always wanted it to be a transparent space where, because you begin to get associations between things and you notice them that you can later carry into a work. I find when I put things away in boxes and they disappear that I forget to ever retrieve them. So I've always worked with transparent materials anyway, so I feel it's just very much in keeping with my work. And gradually it's become fuller and fuller, I guess. But it has had enormous changes depending on the work I'm working on. You know, so there used to be a big central column down here of all the hospital for plants that was taking place once, and then at other times there's been, you know, all the thing of all minerals and colours and everything. So it enables me to kind of live with the ideas of the work around me and add to it and everything, so that when it comes to installing the work, I've already had a kind of memory sense of how it should be. But I think it's just very I don't know, it's just interesting how things begin to find their little associations, and often just accidentally things can happen, and I like that. It's called a love story. Flowers and flying foxes come together every year with beautiful timing and exquisite generosity, giving each other great kisses that bring forth new generations. On one side of this kiss is a cohort of Australian trees, eucalypts, corymbias, and other members of the Mycetinae family. The trees put out bright, shiny, perfume flowers because they need to be pollinated. Hope is threaded all through the work in the whole language that I do use, which is about a type of healing. There is a language of healing in my art practice. What I'm trying to do is to bring us into a love relationship with trees that I think we're going to need to care for our planet. I felt overwhelmingly I wanted to make a work about trees because I've been, working with them for years and years, and they have appeared in my work, but I really wanted this total focus onto them. And the idea of calling it a theatre of trees was a way of sort of bringing in all these characters to play, the mythological, the philosophical, the scientific, and just the completely experiential, and the different types of trees. There's just suggestions of these, sometimes they're quite veiled out in the images. And the way of experiencing them as 5.5 metre hangings is really, you'll get glimpses of them as you pass through them, but also the fact you could get a sense of entering a forest, and then you could look at some things in more detail, and other things, it'll be hard to grasp a total image all the way up unless you're standing back at the very entry of the work. But I wanted this experience of like being in a forest, and also there'll be video projections that enhance that will come on and off, like the way a forest has sunlight enters it and then disappears. And the way I work with these images, the final way I work is I've just photographed hundreds and hundreds of trees over a long period, and that includes, images even from books of mythological trees or historical German drawings, but also a huge range of trees like figs, these strange eucalypts. But then what happens is I then paint over the top of them, and they become like sort of paintings that then are what is produced for these huge hanging pieces, which are on voile. So they turn into sort of these paintings, really. They sort of take on another life, and they're much looser, and you can sort of see how the form is still there of the tree, but I've painted over them, so I've got this whole series of paintings of these trees. They've started off as images of trees. This is a huge tree in Tasmania, and then this is the mythological Daphne and Apollo, and then these trees. And so I'm also veiling them in Photoshop. Here you can sort of see these final selection of them, like an olive tree, a big eucalypt, another olive tree. This is a little historical tree. There's lots with amazing roots spilling down, so it's got a lot of spill down feelings. Some of my own earlier burnt trees are in there. A lot of the trees from Bhutan, the Tarkine forest in Tasmania, and so on, and even from Dame Elizabeth's garden, some very beautiful citradoras.
Because I guess what we're looking at here is trying to get as big a piece as we can physically handle.
Yeah.
But then you're actually running out of gallery space as
yes,
well.
I know.
So
into here.
But even then, you're only really talking about 7 metres at the most.
But what if you cut them both the other side of that where they fork?
Here?
Yeah.
Maybe that's better.
Maybe I think aesthetically it might look better to have that continuity. See this tree in a way that they would never see it, because anyway, it's usually these drawings you don't see them, they're under the bark. So it's important to know this one was killed by the drought and they were going to have to pull it down anyway. So it works for them and for us. Sad for the tree. Oh my God, look at that image of the tree. This work was something I conceived that I'd been wanting to do for quite a long time, is again the idea of putting a big tree itself onto a respiratory system in order to giving life back to a dead tree. You just have to respond to the tree you find, and then how you will, apply these medical tubes and
binding
to it. And so for that particular one, it was just a way of thinking, is the tree spilling out its life, or is it drawing up these fluids into it to take on a new life? So there's always this ambiguity. Is it giving out, or is it drawing up? Well, they were little specimens that originally came from a forest that was being cut down in Chiapas in Mexico. The whole idea was I was collecting these seeds that were left on the ground and imagined them growing into these little plants, these little residual plants that survived this sort of completely massive clear felling and logging. What's it like for those little seeds to suddenly begin life again without their mother forest? Each time the work's put up, it's a new little saplings are in there. They're all tubed up together as though they're all helping one another. And of course, as we know in forests now, trees all help and assist one another. And there's a whole network of connections beneath the roots. It sort of suggests that possibility, but it also suggests medical equipment that we know, and it's just like in a lot of my works, one of the ways of trying to bring a kind of empathy and love to these little specimens through using human equipment so people can empathise more with it. For me, it was a very difficult exhibition to find a title for because there are so many named works in the exhibition, and I wanted a title that could embrace all of it, and a short title. I've always loved the writing of W.G. Sebald, and in particular his poem called After Nature, part of which fragments of the poem are actually included in the Space of Wonder. But I also find that one of his books, Rings of Saturn, has always been my most favourite book, the way it can accumulate all of these different things together and form this overriding link between them. And I sort of feel that I'm trying to do that in the work. But very specifically with After Nature, I thought that this exhibition very much embodies that, because we are in a period of the Anthropocene where we are thinking about how do we live on our planet now, where it is really a post-natural world that we're living in. We're trying to conserve and look after pockets of nature, but there's so much of nature now that's needing all sorts of technical support systems. It's needing man to survive. Think of how many of those species can't live without man now. And so I think that whole idea of After Nature, which will probably be embodied most in the new work, which we call Heart Shock, but maybe the new title for it should be After Nature, because it will be like a tree on a sort of life support that's exhibiting signs of our world after nature.